Good evening, guys and gals. Welcome everyone to the work session for February the 4th, 2021. We'll go ahead and turn it over to the items of information, Dr. Spence.
First, we're going to start with a COVID update from Dr. Whitehead.
Take one and pass it around.
So in addition to the community information that we have tried to keep you current with each time we meet, which I'll share a little bit of, what's coming around will also be posted. We'll show you some internal data to kind of have as a comparison point as well. As of this morning in the report that I received, our 7-day rolling average in this area is 212.4, and the Glynn 14-day community transmission index is at 578.8. Again, that's that number that if it's over 500, the governor allows any municipalities to enforce a mask mandate. Again, we're at 578.8 with that. And Glynn's 7-day rolling average is 41.14 cases per day. And our new cases per 100,000 is 47.8. So that gives you some community context for that. And over the last several weeks, last week, we had another little jump up on the percentage of people testing positive, and it was 10% for Glynn County. So that gives you just some context for our overall workings that we have, and then the chart that you have shows you the numbers of staff members that we have recorded as testing positive for COVID-19, what percentage of that school staff that equals from their whole number, and then student positive cases that we have reported, as well as the percentage for that school, the overall student enrollment that was calculated using, and then the quarantine numbers and the percentages by site. And then the final line on the chart shows you our system total at this time for what we have recorded related to cases here. And I would just bring up, when you're thinking about, you know, correlations to the Glynn County averages and those things, some of our system totals for staff, we have staff members that don't live in Glynn, so their data reports back to their county, so our staff numbers aren't always included in the Glynn local numbers when you're looking at it. So just looking at it, I didn't know if you had any questions related to the data.
Yes, ma'am. Is this a total number?
Yes.
Or so it's not current?
It is as of about 10 o'clock this morning.
Or, I mean...
For the entire year.
For the entire year.
Since we started on August 20th.
It's
Since
not
we started reporting on August 20th.
total active cases.
No.
That we, okay.
No. When I report that on the website each week, the chart each week reflects what is considered an active case at that time.
Yeah.
So as they roll off, as they return back, I'm filtering those back out so that the weekly report is only who is considered an active case or an active quarantine at that point in time.
I have a question on the quarantine. So if the same student ends up being quarantined more than one time, are they recorded as two in the count?
Yes,
Okay.
there are duplicates in the quarantine numbers.
Okay.
There are not duplicates in any of the case numbers.
Okay.
I did confirm with Dr. Davis today as well that for the numbers that are pushed out for the county, those are also supposed to be unique numbers as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there any particular reason or method to the madness behind the high schools being, I guess, so much higher than the other numbers? Because they interact more? Is it got anything to do with the school, or I mean, is it
They go to parties on the weekend.
outside? Okay.
Yeah,
You know,
we hear a lot of that.
What we're seeing right now is we're seeing, you know, we were talking today, with our indoor sports, we've really had an uptick in the number of COVID cases and the number of exposures. We weren't seeing that when we were doing outdoor sports early on. So we're about to end indoor sports and move to outdoor sports again. So we anticipate that they're going to drop significantly once we go to outdoor sports.
And we're, you know, knocking on everything. We are moving towards a decline this week in cases and quarantine. We'll have overlap on this week's chart from activity from the end of last week, which was pretty high. So this week's chart could look a little alarming when you see quarantine numbers particularly. But then a good many of those students then will fall back off the next week for a quarantine. But we are still getting, like today, today's report had 13 new cases that aren't reflected on here because I had included, as I got them until I finalized this chart, I was including what I received this morning. And on almost, I would say 9 of those cases, there was a caveat with it with each report that I got from a principal through the phone call or the email or text that dad is tested positive, or they were exposed to a friend outside of school, or those sorts of things. So they're not coming back to say that, you know, they feel like it's happening, you know, in school.
There's 3 things to remember. First of all, when we started school, we saw a quick spike, and then we settled down. When we went to Thanksgiving break, we came back and had a spike. We went to Christmas break, and we're still seeing that, but now it's starting to tick down. And also, Dr. Whitehead told me today that around 90% of the calls that she gets from staff members that have tested positive, they tell the principal, I was at this party, or I went out of town, or I got it here. So, you know, they're not saying, I don't know where I got it. They have a pretty good idea when they picked it up. And so
They went to a wedding or a sorority, you know, event or some. I mean, they're able to come back and tell us a hunting trip. I mean, it's those kinds of things. And then the other kind of interesting note within some of our own internal data is that we have you know, quite a few staff members who their spouses are also staff members. And because we're seeing the biggest transmission within family households, if one of the staff members gets it, the spouse is pretty much going to follow right behind that. So our staff numbers are also kind of, I guess, multiplied a little bit whenever you have staff members who are married.
the number of student tests positive could be related also to, we changed, the Department of Public Health allowed us to change our rules for coming back. So after the 5th day, they could test and then come back after the 8th day. Well, we're seeing a lot more student tests. And also, if teachers take COVID leave now, because the COVID leave that the federal government gave us first semester, they told us we had the option to extend it, but it's at our cost. So we extended it in January. We've also extended it in February, but we put with it that if they said they were exposed, they would have to test positive to get the COVID leave. So of course, we're seeing more tests that way also. But we are granting them COVID leave if they get COVID. We'll give them that 10 days.
Do we have I'm sorry, go ahead.
So, are we notifying the bus drivers, as I shared with Dr. Spence, several have come saying they're not being notified. They even brought this by this morning saying that if they're around the students with 15 minutes, they should be notified. It's a letter from the nurse from Brunswick Middle School that gave some parents, and it said 15 minutes or more, they should also be notified and tested.
The
Bus drivers.
Okay, so our employees don't test unless they become symptomatic. That's not a requirement for us unless the employee is symptomatic. And I talk to Dr. Simmons pretty much every day or every other day as well about any of his suspicions or any of his cases. So we were, as a matter of fact, we had a discussion today about a situation. But so we stay in contact. The schools don't necessarily turn over just blanket reports about students because we have to respect their privacy related to their health status. So they will let them know. I have confirmed with principals that they don't have a problem with kids trying to come back to school early, because I think that was a concern by some of the bus drivers. I had 2 that came to see me, and they were saying, how do we know if they should be back on the bus? And so I have talked with several principals who, well, I confirmed with all of them, but I've talked with several about ways we can work around that as far as giving notice to say, this group of students, you shouldn't expect them back on the bus until this date, without a real reason on the note saying why they're back. It could be because they're suspended home or whatever the case is. And so we're working toward trying to make that not a burden on any one person, but to make it so it would help with that communication. But the schools aren't seeing students just show up to the bus stop on 2 days early before they're actually supposed to come back. Because the principals and their admin team should be communicating clearly to the families, this is the earliest day your child can return back to school on those instances. And if it's an early return from quarantine, they actually have to have negative test results to be allowed back in at that point for the student's case. And part of the confusion, and some of the discussion that I've had with two of the bus drivers, two different occasions, different people, is there's not always clarity because a student is sent home. Sometimes there's an assumption that that student has COVID, but actually they may be being sent home for quarantine, which means that anybody else who had been around that student is the contact of a contact, and we don't do any notifications to contacts of contacts. So that creates another layer of sometimes confusion. But when they change the rules on us to let them come back at day 8, day 11, day 14, and then it's day 10, if they've actually tested positive for COVID, we've got all these multiple dates that somebody could or could not, be returning back. And so that's why it's really important that the principals know what that exact date is and they communicate that to the parents clearly. And we've had some issues with that. I think last time I shared with you that if we have students at multiple levels, sometimes the story morphs a little bit by the time they talk to the third school. So the date, the third school's given a different return date, but it's based on the information they've been given. So we've tried to cut to the chase, and the principals have really been working hard over the last couple of weeks that if I'm getting a call, I'm finding out if I'm your first contact, and then I'm looking in Infinite Campus and seeing you have siblings for this child at other schools, and then I'm trying to give you the direction for what it would mean for all the children in your house, and then communicating with the principals at those other schools to say, I've already talked with Mrs. Whitehead, and these are the return dates for her children. So that saves confusion for everybody, trying to figure out the multiple return dates.
Do they have to be tested more than one time before they return?
No, ma'am. And the only time they have to test, the only time we require a test to return is if they're trying to return early from quarantine. So if they have tested positive, we just run out the 10 days. And then that's our DPH guidance. So they don't have to have a negative test to come back after a positive test. They only have to give us a negative test if they want to return early from a quarantine. And that would be from day 5, 6, or 7, and then they could return on day 8 if it's negative.
And you're referring to the direct exposures, not the COVID positive?
That's correct.
Right.
Yes. Yes. And if they have, if the child at any point in time that's a direct exposure, if they show any symptom that's related to COVID, then that come back early card is taken off the table. So that's why it's important to keep up to date with it. And, I will say the majority of our families have been very forthcoming with information. They stay in contact to let the principals know what's happening, if they've started showing symptoms, if they've taken them for tests or whatever the case is. And that's helped a lot for them to know that, because sometimes we have to adjust their dates. So if they're out on quarantine and they start to show symptoms, then we have to start a 10-day count from that point. So it changes. It's always a shifting sand almost for us. But we try to work it out, and our communication plan has been set up since August that, once the school learns of a case, the principal is supposed to be immediately notified, and then the principal is supposed to get in touch with me. So then we can work through what it should look like for return dates for children. And I know each month we meet with principals, we have COVID update, but Dr. Spence and I had talked about the fact that this next week we just need to go back and review the whole communication plan and review to remind everybody of those protocols and who should be calling families to let them know that their children are to be home. Because
that would be the principal. That is the principal's responsibility, not anyone else in the building. Because we want one point of contact from the school to us, to Dr. Whitehead, and that point of contact makes the call, so that we're not giving misinformation.
And I always tell them, and I, share with families, I'm happy to take, when I get the confusion, when they have the confusion, to call me, and we work through it. And oftentimes it's because somebody thought they were doing the right thing by stepping in, but then misinformation was provided, and so I'm able to clear it up and then provide any supporting documentation they need to know that is the guidance that we're following. So, but like I said, the majority of our families, I think that is part of the reason we've been able to stay open and working as well as we have, is because they're doing that. The one The one caveat to that is, you know, I think sometimes we want to go into denial that, oh, it can't be COVID, and so they'll look over maybe some symptoms and they'll send them to school. Well, if they kept them home and they tested positive, we wouldn't have contact tracing to deal with. But they went ahead and sent them because they thought, oh, it just can't be. And then somebody at school recognizes the symptom, sends them, and they test, and then indeed they're positive. So that's sometimes where we end up with some of our higher quarantine numbers. But indoor sports, particularly for middle and high, that was since middle of December actually, but even more so in January, we've had a good bit of action for that related, and we can relate it back to interactions with those teams.
Are there any other questions for Dr. Whitehead?
I just have a comment, and it's tongue-in-cheek like normal, and I apologize in advance, but it's just, this kind of goes back to the course thing that we brought up a few weeks ago. Like, you know, I've heard that we can't exchange Valentines now in elementary school, which is something we've been doing since the, you know, beginning of time. But again, we can wrestle and sweat on each other on the basketball court, and, you know, be inside and go to concession stands, but we can't. I don't know if that was this level.
It didn't come from us.
Okay, it must have been school by school, because that's what some of them are doing, is saying.
We have provided a plan
Right.
for them to be able to do Valentine's because we didn't want to take that
It's just
away
funny
from
how some
students.
things are going back normal for some kids and not for others. That's all. It's just
Yeah.
kind of strange to me.
Well,
But
anything that they're
you know.
asking us to do, we try to provide a plan that they can do it safely.
yeah,
I mean, we're getting now plans for pageants or whatever. I mean, we're trying to allow as much return
Sure.
to normalcy, but we're just asking, send us a plan. We'll tell you what you need
Right.
to tweak to make it so that we can make this happen. And so,
not the end of the world. Just, you know, it's just.
yeah,
We're gonna get through this.
Yeah, I agree.
I
I mean,
want to remind everyone that we have over 91% of our students in face-to-face learning, so our numbers have increased in the classroom, which that makes it more difficult right off the bat. But there are still some school systems who have not gone back to school. Academically, we're going to have an advantage when we come out of this because of the work of our teachers and our students, and they've just held tight. And they've continued to move through this. And I think academically, we're going to see that we're going to be in pretty good shape when we come out of this.
well, y'all have done a heck of a job, and so have the teachers and administrators. Everybody's worked really hard. I wish that the only thing I wish, and I'm really surprised the numbers are as low as they are. You know, 2% overall is not bad in my opinion. I mean, I wish it was under 1 or whatever. I don't know what the
Sure.
number would be, what would make you happy, but of course
Yeah.
0 would be the target. But 2% is not bad, given all the things we've gone through. But I think that. The only message out there right now is that hopefully parents and students alike will remain diligent. I mean, we've got to see this thing through. I mean, it's easy. Spring's coming, and that brings all kinds of
Yes.
things, you know.
it does. And then the add-on to that I was just going to mention, because I know we had a lot of generous community members when this became a concern at the beginning of the year, but in some places especially, we're seeing them become more lax with sending them out of the house in the morning with a mask.
Right.
And so our mask inventory is like, you know, very, very low at this point, from especially all the donations that we had taken. They carried us to this point, but that's one of our pieces is if we don't keep all those pieces
Sure.
in place, then, you know, these numbers could look very, very different in a couple of months. So.
If that gets to a critical level, please let me know and I can get you someone to get in contact with.
That'd be good. Let's go ahead and make that happen.
Yeah, I'm about to say.
I'll talk to him
We're
tomorrow.
going to buy
Yeah.
some anyway, just to have on hand. We're going to buy some, but yeah, we can get some more. That'd be great.
I will talk to him tomorrow and give you all a call.
That would be awesome.
And just another comment, I do appreciate as much work has gone into it. I see it daily, I've seen a lot of people die, to include kids. You just got to wear your mask. I know we don't like it, but it makes a difference, and the data is out there. But when you look at data, make sure you're not looking at .com.
Right.
.com is not data. .com is an opinion. World Health Organization, if you want to go global, if you want to stay here, then it's just the CDC and others. But a reputable site when you quote data. I'm not telling you, I'm telling you nothing, but just the community itself.
Well, now certainly, I know the board would certainly back you if we need to tighten back up on it, because we first talked about the mask issue. It was a dress code issue. Okay, so
Yes.
if you come to school with an inappropriate shirt on, you sit in the office until you can get that remedied. And so if we're out of mask and people are not doing it, you know, on a habitual basis, I had to turn around the other morning and go back to the house. You know, it just happens. And but if they're doing it, they maybe sit in the office until somebody can come pick them up or they can bring them one. And you know, we've been fortunate this far to have so many people donate. I know it's been tough, but you know, if we need to kind of tighten back up, we, you know,
And
I
what we're
support you
right
doing
now,
that.
The only time we're actually making it a discipline issue is if they just simply refuse to do it.
Right.
You know, so I was in a pre-K class the other day, and I was reading to them, and the little girl's mask that I know kept falling down, and she's just smiling, and I'm like, I don't want to say her name, and I'm like, pull your mask up, you know, I mean, you don't want to get on to her for that, or put it on, they play with it and all, so, I mean, we try to remind them, but overall, when I walk to Glynn Academy, or I go to Brunswick or Jane Macon, I mean, the kids are wearing their mask, they're doing what we're asking them to do, and I mean, we can't ask for a whole bunch more.
Well, just like discipline and other things, you did just have an influx of students back into the system for the
That's
first time in a while, so, you've got to kind of reboot the whole thing, so.
And
Thank
then
you.
if I may, Dr. Spence, I was just gonna give them a quick update to let them know that we opened up a survey this week. I was able to get that ready. Brittany has that out for staff members to respond about their interest in receiving the vaccine, so that we have an idea of how many staff members we would be looking at if they allow us to order supplies or go through training so that we could administer it with our nursing staff. And so that there are a lot of logistics behind that, but at this point, we're just trying to gauge interest in the vaccine.
And I got an email right before we walked in from the DPH saying, start making plans for how you would do it at your school site. So.
And who's the contact person here that I need to let?
Oh, for the mask?
No, yes, for the whole scenario. So here's something that's going on that a lot of people don't know about. The vaccine, when the dose comes out, the volume in the vial, there's another syringe that you can use that'll increase your ability to use 6 instead of 5 in the one same vial. So if you get 500 vials, that's 500 more. And it's a special needle, and I can get Kyle to let you know what that is.
Okay.
Kind of hard to find right now,
Run everything through.
but through her.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah, that would be
Will do.
great, because we're about to hopefully set up some rotations for the nurses through the vaccinations at the DPH, so that they get the just-in-time training and the other pieces that are involved with that, you know, the handling of the vaccine and all that good stuff. So
That'll work.
that'll be one of our next things.
Any other questions for Dr. Whitehead? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, I want to talk about transfer. When teachers transfer from one school to the other. In the past, we've created a transfer list, and that transfer list, it basically says these teachers want to transfer from school X to school Y. And that can have negative connotations for some of our schools, because you look on there and go, well, 12 teachers want to transfer, and then positive connotations for the place they want to transfer to. I think that what we're going to do in the future is kind of do away with that and say, if you want to go to another school, you apply for an open job. And Ms. Seals has set up a way for teachers to apply by simply adding their name to it in our application process. And so that way there's no list that everybody sees, that sometimes even teachers get to see and go, well, why did you want to leave school X? That must be an awful school. Well, no, they just want to go to a school that they think is better. And I don't want to hurt our schools, and I want to give teachers an opportunity to transfer if they want to move. And so they can apply, the principal can bring them over for an interview, but on the last day of school, when students are there, when the bell rings, that's it. They're where they are. Because what happens is, someone at one school has an opening in June, and they pull from another school. Well, that principal didn't have anything to do with that, and now they're trying to find a teacher. And a lot of times, it's our struggling schools that are trying to find teachers in June, because one of our better schools has pulled a teacher from them. And to me, it's just not fair, and so we're going to go with that. Does anybody have any questions about that? All right, thank you. All right, Ms. Preston, you're up.
Okay, so I'm gonna do just a quick little update on the GOOD report. Steve Sammons had some health issues last weekend, so he wasn't able to do the full report. But before he did, he sent, if you'll click on GOOD report, he sent the updated revenue for our last month of collections for East Plus 3. So for East Plus 3, we collected $114,080,321.80, and our average collections ended up being $1.9 million over the 5 years. Our highest was a little over $3 million, but that was the month that I told you guys they audited sales tax, and there was $940,000 additional in that month. So if you take that away, it's a little over $2 2.1, 2.2 million. And our lowest over the 5-year period was 1.3. Just to give you a little bit of history, East Plus 1 was 3.5 years and we collected 65.7 million. East Plus 2 was for a 5-year period and we collected 95, right at 95.1 million. And this one we collected 114, almost 114.1. And then E4, you know, we're capped at 112. So unless something happens with the economy, I don't think we'll have a problem collecting 112. But we'll see. So we'll have the full report next month with all the backup. The next thing I have is December financial report.
We're gonna go down to 3A.
3A. There were no budget amendments to the general fund that changed revenues and expenditures overall. The year-to-date revenues are 75% of the budget. Local tax receipts in December were 4.3 million. Year-to-date expenses represent 43.4% of the budget, and we're halfway through the year in December. The sales tax collections for the December was a little over 2 million, which was 5% higher than the prior year. The board's year-to-date collections from December to December of last year is 15.24% up. It's just been amazing to me, the East Plus receipts considering the pandemic, but we have not suffered at all. Are there any questions for the December financial report? The other thing I have is the computer refresh, the annual refresh. And as you know, we bought Chromebooks for every student. So this refresh is mainly PC refresh and monitors. So we are refreshing computers at Brunswick High, Golden Isles, Career Academy, Glynn Academy, and the new Altama. And it's Dell's, and it's on statewide contract. Total price of $1,029.95.
I know I'm a broken record every time this comes up. But, I mean, we're getting towers and the micro PCs and things like that. Is this what the schools are asking for? Do we know?
Each principal submitted what they wanted, yes.
Okay. Are we?
Teachers have a Chromebook available to them
Right.
anytime.
Right, from their classroom cart. Are they still stocking computer labs in addition to having the?
We
Chromebooks
have very
in
few hardwired labs now. A
Okay.
lot of the Chromebooks will be used for testing and taken into lab type spaces.
So these are mainly teacher administrator type computers?
Yes, and some labs. We do PC labs for the business ed classes, marketing and what is it, Microsoft, at Glynn Academy and Brunswick High. And we use hardwired computer labs for E2020, right? There's certain little oddities to certain kind of programs that we do that need the actual mini towers. But other than that, a Chromebook pretty much works for almost anything.
Right. So I just want to make sure we're serving the needs of the school, the staff, and the students with what we're getting.
Stephen actually works with each principal on what they want,
Okay,
and they submit it to
sounds good.
us.
Thank you.
And then the last thing we have is our Microsoft Enrollment for Education Subscription Renewal. And that is a statewide contract pricing of $103,629.67. It's in the General Fund Technology budget. It's actually a savings from last year. It was $125 last year. And we're going to look at using those savings. IT is looking at some email encryption licenses that we feel is necessary. So, and that's just an annual license agreement.
Any questions for Ms. Preston? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Boudreaux, you're on.
So much money
Good afternoon, everybody.
All right, going down the list, Glynn Academy. Only thing going on at Glynn Academy is the gym addition, or new gym addition. Contractor's mobilized, he's put up his temporary fences, he started some sidewalk demolition. Next week, the water sewer work will begin. All this is in anticipation of when basketball season's over, we'll be able to go in and take out the existing chiller and air conditioning and heat for the gym and start demoing those buildings that need to come down. So that's on track and doing well. Altama Elementary School, last 3 weeks, I'm happy to report the contractor's hit all of his revised milestones for, our May completion. So right now, I'm still hopeful that we'll be moving in last 2 weeks of May. So I'll keep you posted on that. Center for the Arts, I had a meeting this week that I missed, but I think they produced an IGA for us to review and comment on. I wasn't there, so I don't know.
They had an IGA, and we made some changes that I knew that you guys would not want in there, and so they're gonna have a complete document for you guys to view at some point in time before the next board meeting. So there's just some changes, some small things that we needed to change.
Okay. East Bloss 4. Well, since we passed East Bloss and started collecting on East Bloss 4, we've been working Mr. Tootin really hard to get some plans underway for some of these initial projects. We're meeting tomorrow morning with the site council at St. Simon's to kind of show them progress on the plan there and get their input on how we're going to approach that project. I'm looking forward to that. That's looking very encouraging. The 3 renovation projects we've got slated to start first in our program, Needwood, Oglethorpe, and Golden Isles. Needwood and Oglethorpe, we have a pretty good plan. They have excess classrooms, so we're going to be able to take a block of rooms at a time through the school year and just kind of work our way through. Golden Isles is going to be a little bit more difficult. So what I've looked at there, and things are looking fairly promising for maybe putting Golden Isles at the old Altama school for a school year. That way we could knock that thing out and be done with it. The transportation works out fine, that we wouldn't have a problem transporting the walk zone. We just need to make sure that we have enough classrooms at old Altama to handle the current population at Golden Isles. But right now it's looking promising. I hope to get some buy-in from the school and we can do that and get that over with. So
You think that would take the whole year to do the work at Golden Isles?
maybe not. Good thing about Golden Isles is that the floors are terrazzo. So take a school like Greer or Satilla Marsh, where all the floors have to be redone. At Golden Isles, we're just doing the classroom floors. Take the carpet out, put whatever we're going to put in there. That'll work out fairly well. So if we get things going well, get our construction managers on board next few months, the possibility it could be done by Christmas time. Otherwise, without having any excess classrooms, we're talking about, maybe doing AC work on weekends and then next summer 22, going in there and trying to finish the whole building. I'd rather not wait that long. We do have state funding on that project, and, we can't wait forever to spend the money, so that's my hope. Anyway, we'll see how that goes. I'll keep you posted. Good report, as Andre did.
Now,
I'm sorry.
Altama is significantly smaller than Golden Isles, population-wise.
Population-wise, but
Yeah.
not classroom-wise.
All right.
Golden Isles has 8 portable classrooms. Altama has 6, well, really 7, but I count 6. But it's really close. I think they could make it work if they tried.
Do we still have the portables from Glynn Academy that were being used?
They're being stored over at Risley Annex, but hopefully we can do it without pouring more portables in there.
Okay, good.
But we'll see. I mean, it's just an option, but
It's a
principal,
viable option.
Ms. Renee is looking at her allocations. She talked with Mrs. Preston about her allocations for next year, and I think she's going to give me a good honest go for it. So hopefully we can make it work. That'd be the best way to proceed, so.
Now, where does Glendale stack up in the list of order for expenditures on East Los 4?
Oh, I'd have to get my cash flow out, but it's probably
It's towards the end.
2 years down the road.
Okay.
Just from a cash flow basis, going all pay as you go.
Right.
These first few, of course, St. Simon's is a big tier 1. That's going to take a good chunk of the early money. We have a good plan for that. Hopefully, the site council likes what we're doing. We'll be able to present that to you at the next meeting. It's kind of exciting. It's hopefully it'll be well received, and we can move on with that as well. So, a lot going on. Can I jump down to my resolution?
To the 5-year.
What we have here, the last part of our 5-year plan is just for the board to approve a resolution. Simply worded. I can't read it, I can't see it, but there it is.
There you go.
There it is. Meets all the rules.
This is what we do every year,
Every 5 years.
every 5 years.
Yes, sir.
Any questions for Mr. Boudreau? That is all I have.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, Ms. Seals. I'm sorry.
Good evening. Tonight, we wanted to just present, we'd like to implement a substitute participation stipend. Of course, as you know, with COVID-19, it's been a challenge to keep all of our classrooms covered with substitutes when people are out for a myriad of reasons. But we felt like one way we could definitely recognize those substitutes who are coming on a regular basis, and we have quite a few who come on a regular basis, is to provide them with some type of stipend at the end of each semester of about $250. It would come at the end of each semester for those substitutes working 50% or more of a semester, as a way to kind of encourage them to come more often, to make sure we've got the substitutes that we need to cover those classrooms when people are out.
If you remember, there were some substitutes that sent us emails asking why they didn't get the stipend. And so this is our way of rewarding those substitutes who we consider priority substitutes who come more often. And that's about 24. It's about 24 that work more than 50% of the time last semester.
24 teachers?
Substitutes, yeah. So it would have affected 24 of those people.
Ms. Seals, take away COVID, do you know about how many substitutes on a regular year, not COVID year, would be fall into this category?
It's around the same number.
Okay.
It's around the same
It'd
number.
be the same or less.
Yeah.
What's our subs qualifications?
In order to be a substitute, they have to attend, we do a orientation. At least it's running about 3 to 4 hours. If they have some type of training with schools, of course, they don't have to go into a school system, to a school classroom to observe. So you're talking about former teachers, people who worked in school settings. They understand how children are in a school setting. We do not require them to go in and observe. However, if they have never worked in a school setting, we require that they go in and participate in at least 4 hours of observations before they're allowed to go in. They have to also pass a background check as well. They also have to complete, within the orientation, we're going through code of ethics, we're going through bloodborne pathogens, we talk about instructional practices, we're talking about behavior practices, all of those things. Within the mandated reporter training, we do all of that in that training, in that orientation. And so we have some people who have high school diplomas, then we have some people who have graduate degrees who are coming into some of our classrooms.
But there's no prerequisites? I mean,
No, sir.
you have to have a diploma?
Yes.
They have to have a high school diploma.
Okay.
Yes, sir, at least.
And they get paid on a scale of high school, they
It goes
have a
up.
high school diploma, then the people with college degrees get paid more, and then people with teacher certification get paid more.
Thank you.
And would this be every January and June from here on out?
Yes, yes, until you guys said stop. But yeah, I think it rewards those substitutes that show up more. Because as a former principal, there was about 2 or 3 at my schools that you just knew if you called, they were coming. And, you know, so that's the people we're talking about. Any questions for Ms. Seals?
It may make it a little more competitive too,
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Especially when they
Always.
get close to 48, 49%, because
Right.
you can bet they'll be counting.
then. You're right.
Thank you, Ms. Seals. That is all I have.
All right. That brings us down to others. Any other before we move on?
I would like to suggest, to add the 1619 project to our curriculum. I do know that it's been around and several states have, but on the local level, if we could just introduce that and have Ms. Pittman or another history teacher look into it and bring back as a plan.
What's the-
1619
I'll
project.
I'll get Ms. Pittman to form a committee and research it, and she can report back to us in the next board meeting.
What's the 1619?
It's the start of history, African American history from beginning of the first year into present.
Okay.
All right. Any other? Hearing none, we'll go to executive session. I know we have personnel
And legal.
and legal. Any land to report on?
No.
I'll entertain a motion to go to executive session for legal and personnel.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Jurgen. Give a second, please. Second by Ms. Gibbons. All those in favor? Unanimous at 5:42 PM.
No, my boy.
He's a big boy.
I entertain a motion to return to from executive session to open session. So moved. Moved by Dr. Yergin. Can I get a second? Mr. Mansell?
Oh, wait, we're missing.
All those in favor?
She's coming. Bam.
Hello, we're back in. Back in at 6:38.
Go Tigers.
I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved by
Second.
Mr. Mansell, second by Ms. Sams. All those in favor? It is unanimous to adjourn at 6:38, Ms. Burrow.
Can we just say